How's it going, guys? And welcome to Fort Wild. We have been in a huge remodel for the last few weeks, and before we kicked it all off, I bought myself a Gerber Dual Force. And the reason was I was really interested in this new multi-tool. I was really interested in the pliers and kind of the application that they would have. And I knew I had this project ahead of me, so I was like, dude, why not use this as a perfect little lab to test the Dual Force in some hard use scenarios, test it in real life scenarios, and bring you guys more than just a table review of kind of a new and exciting multi-tool. So I've foregone some of the tools in my tool bags. I've forgotten some of the tools in my tool boxes so that I could use the Dual Force in as many applications as I could around the house and around this remodel to let you guys know what I think. So 14 hours a day for the last 2 weeks, it's been in my pocket, on my hip, and in my bags. I've got a lot of thoughts about this thing. Let's kick it off with the pliers. So obviously the pliers are the centerpiece to the Dual Force, and it's the thing that really attracted me to it because I'm interested in this idea of being able to have everything that I need kind of in an EDC kit or in my pocket at any given time in one tool. So Gerber claims that the pliers are really good to use on nuts and bolts. So I found a variety of tasks around the house to use them on. I've used them on some plumbing. I've used them on taking a fridge door off of a fridge I had to take out of the kitchen. And you know, we're in rough construction mode. So I actually just took them in the back as well and tested them out on some motorcycle parts and stuff that I had in the back. And to be honest, I found that they were really, really useful. They were really effective. All of my multi-tools currently are more of a lineman style plier, which means you have the plier up front and the cutter in the center. And you can kind of use them for like smaller nuts and bolts, but they don't work great at all. Dual Force actually works really awesome for that application. It's adjustable, so you have a more narrow set of pliers, and then you have a wider set of pliers as well. Now, I know that there are multi-tools on the market that are vice grip multi-tools, where you have a vice grip up front, and then you have your tools and the handles and stuff like that. But I like a more compact multi-tool. I like one that will fold up and I can put in a pouch on my hip, or I can put in my pocket, or anything of that nature, or in an EDC kit or something like that. So those don't appeal to me broadly. But with the Dual Force, I did find that the nut and bolt feature was awesome. Now, going back to the lineman style of plier that I usually use, another nice thing about that is that they have a really good tip on them that's good for pulling and prying nails, staples, whatever, right, wire, whatever you're using. And the Dual Force does a really good job with that as well. I was really surprised actually at how well it was pulling staples out of the floor, how well it would grab nails, how well it was grabbing wire, because of just how wide it is and everything. But on the narrow setting, those teeth grab really well. They cross-cut each other and make for a really good biting surface. Now, my only issue with the pliers on the Dual Force has to do with the cutters, and that's where they've placed them. So on a lineman style plier, you'll have your cutters generally right here, but the Dual Force, like many electrical stripping pliers, are on the back side. I'm not a fan of this style in general with any plier, and I found that the ones on the Dual Force they didn't, I don't know if it was a leverage thing, but it didn't quite have the umph and the cut that I can get out of my lineman style. So, of course there's gonna be trade-offs with having a much more versatile head for nuts and bolts, but that was one thing that I found is that they do not cut as well out of the box as say like a Leatherman Surge or Wave. And so I think overall, that centerpiece of the Dual Force is a huge win. And that brings us really right into the tools on the handles. So the handles have 3 blades in them. We'll kick it off with the most obvious one, which is just a plain bladed knife. I believe it's a 420 HC. I had a hard time confirming that, but just kind of like your standard, easy to sharpen, easy to use knife blade you find in most multi-tools. It also comes with a saw. I actually really like a saw in my multi-tool, and so I was excited to see this. It worked really effective, ripped, grabbed, tore, did all the things it was supposed to do. Now, the interesting blade that comes with this thing is the stock of this is a file, and then the front of it is like a scraper, kind of like a chisel type thing. And I looked for different uses for this around the project. I don't really use scrapers a lot. I only use chisels when I'm doing particular type of construction work. And so for example, we're here on the ground and there's this like mastic asphalt paper stuff that they used to adhere stuff, linoleum back in the day. And you can see it's a really effective scraper. It gets the job done. And I think that it works really well. Obviously I wouldn't do the entire floor with it. But one thing with the scraper is the knife blade on this is of a steel that I don't really care about. It's easy to sharpen, it's easy to repair. So like if I need to scrape something, I'm just gonna scrape it with my knife blade. So I would have liked this to have been a pry bar, and I actually try to use this as a pry bar without destroying the edge, and I failed miserably. So I think that if I was gonna carry the Dual Force more regularly, I would reprofile this into a pry bar, because there is no pry bar on the entire Dual Force, and I think that that would be a lot more useful than like this scraper chisel type thing. Also, the back end of the Dual Force is plastic, so even if you did want to use it like a chisel and kind of tap the end of it, chances are that you would crack these plastic pieces, which wouldn't be any good. But those plastic pieces do lead us into something I've been really excited to test on my own, and that is the center drive. So it's applications like this that I was really excited to test the center drive out on. I've been wanting to test the center drive lately. A lot of you guys have been asking me about what my opinions are of the center drive. I think it's great. And having used it on this Dual Force, I think it is an awesome addition, and I think it's a really awesome tool. It basically gives you all the function of a normal screwdriver, but built into a foldable multi-tool, which I love. Way more convenient than any other multi-tool screwdriver that I've used. Now, with all of that praise, it is actually with the center drive that the Dual Force kind of started falling apart for me personally as something that I would want to carry, and that came in the bit drivers. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Out of the box, the center drive came with a number 2 Phillips head bit. It came with a number 1 Phillips head bit into this really neat little like lockable tow away bit holder, and it came with a standard bit. Now you can see the standard bit's gone. I lost it. That's not necessarily an uncommon thing. I've lost bits on basically every multi-tool I've owned and have to replace them. The nice thing about these is they're not some sort of weird square one like you get with some of the Leathermans. These are really easy to replace bits. However, these holders are made of plastic. And I found that as I was like using the center drive more and more, I kept running into issues specifically based around these bit holders. So I dropped it a couple times, I pounded on it a couple times, not like really hard with a hammer or anything, but you know, just multi-tool stuff. Like a good multi-tool does a lot of things well, but it doesn't do anything necessarily perfectly. So you know, you get a little rough with your multi-tools sometimes. And these plastic bits just were not holding up. After only 2 weeks of use, the bit holder that held the flathead bit or the standard bit, the detent on it got really, really weak. And that's actually how I ended up losing the flathead bit, is I dropped the knife from waist height, not off a ladder or anything like that. This just popped right open and the bit flew out into debris and I just couldn't find it. I also didn't look that hard because I was kind of frustrated that it popped out, but you know, it is what it is. I also found that the way that the detent works on these plastic holders isn't very great either, because they swing out this way, which is awesome, and it has a pretty strong detent. This one doesn't, like I said, but I can show you here on the other side. This one has a pretty strong detent, holds out, pushes pretty good. But for both of these, I've had the issue of it actually spinning past the detent this way and locking itself. And that's like, even just being in my bag and like putting a tool on it just wrong has swung this that way, and I've had to like force it back with my hand, tap it back with a tool, things like that. So I think that it's a really neat idea, but unfortunately I think that this is kind of the weak link in the Dual Force armor. After 2 weeks of hard work with the Gerber Dual Force in real world scenarios, I'd have to say it's just not for me. And to put all my biases on the table, I know that Gerber gets some flack in the community from time to time, materials, make, model, whatever. I actually like a lot of Gerber stuff, so the name on the multi-tool has nothing to do with it. Also, I am a huge Leatherman Surge fanboy. Like, that's a fact, that's a known fact in the universe. And to be honest, when I bought this and was willing to test it and is excited to check it out, I was 100% willing to trade some of the tools and some of the utility on my Surge for the ability to work on nuts and bolts more readily and more easily, right? And that is something that the Dual Force does amazingly. I like no fault to that at all. I think that the pliers section of the Dual Force is very well thought out and does exactly what it's supposed to do. But there started to be a combination of things for me that just ended up where it's not something that I would carry regularly. I mean, first off, well, the cutter placement and how the cutters work, not a big fan of that. I really think that that chisel scraper end should be a pry bar. I think it'd be a lot more useful in a lot more applications. Not a big fan of the way that the sheath sits on my belt. I like to carry my multi-tool scout carry, and the sheath kind of flops around a bit. And then finally, with the bit holders, those plastic bit holders, with one of those kind of giving up the ghost after just 2 weeks of hard use, it's just not something that I feel like I could rely on regularly. And this isn't to put the Dual Force down. I mean, if you're the type of person that works with nuts and bolts regularly in your EDC and you need a full-size screwdriver, you're not pounding on it and working, you know, hardcore like I've been doing with the Dual Force, it could be a really great knife. At only $30 less than the Surge, I just anticipated it to hold up maybe just a little bit better. But yeah, so I could recommend the Gerber Dual Force to somebody who is in a lighter use situation, nuts and bolt needs in their EDC on a regular basis. The full-size screwdriver is really nice. But yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with the Leatherman Surge for now. Let me know if you guys have a Gerber Dual Force. Let me know what your experiences have been with it, because this is just one use case scenario. This isn't the end all be all. These are just my experiences. I hope this was useful in showing you guys how I was testing out the multi-tool, why I was testing it the certain way I was. And you know, if you dug it, give the video a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. I always love talking to you guys in the comments, and catch you on the next one.